back again. So, obviously, been on a little mini hiatus of talking about football. I haven't talked about, soccer football, you get the point, in a few weeks now. When was the last time? So I did the episode with Danish, and that was my first episode in like 2 to 3 weeks. And now today is going to be about boxing, because it's the biggest fight of the year. So, Canelo against Crawford. This will go out same day. One of the rare times I'll do this. I got chocolate right there. I was about to eat it on camera. I'm not going to do that. So, this is the biggest fight since the first Fury Usyk fight. After that, last time, the second one didn't get as much hype. First one, massively hyped because it was undisputed. First heavyweight undisputed champ since Lennox back in 2000 and something, early 2000s. And, well, now is this. This is probably the biggest, most anticipated fight in about 15, 18 months. Huge. And I'm honestly really surprised this happened. So the first rumblings of this were after Crawford beat up Spence in 23, so just over 2 years ago. And I just brushed it. I was thinking, this isn't going to happen. There's a difference of 3 weight classes. And Canelo's gone as high as 175, and Crawford started at 135. The chance of this happening is extremely low. So I didn't see it happening. And until it got confirmed, just a few months ago, I was like, there's no way this happens. Like, there was such a small chance of this fight happening that I would be absolutely stunned if it got made. But it did. Apparently there was enough interest in it. I wasn't actually that interested in it because of the difference in weight classes. Like, the furthest that I can really stretch my interest is 2 weight classes. And that's if the skill gap is huge. Which I don't think it's massive here. But that's a different conversation. I'll get into that later. Where I don't think the skill gap is huge, and, I think that it could be an intriguing matchup. I didn't think that was the case here, because it's 3 weight classes, and I thought, okay, we'll have to see what happens. But, yeah, it got made. There was enough interest in it. There was enough money in it. Turkey put up enough money in it for both sides to get involved, and the fight got made. Honestly, really surprising. So, yeah, I'll just be covering that, a bit of a prediction. On the whole, I think it's going to be a really good production because of the team involved. I mean, I was a bit upset that they didn't have Jim Lampley on the call, but then I heard Jim Lampley on Rogan's pod, and I was like, it's a good thing they don't have Lampley because he's older now and he's struggling to really string up sentences. He's not sharp as he used to be 6-7 years ago. Whenever HBO went off the air, in terms of the boxing scenes, I was like, okay, fair enough. But they brought back Max Kellerman and they brought back Andrew Ward, and those are two of my favorite analysts around. Max, in particular, is my favorite. He's got a certain element of showmanship and he's got some charisma to him, which is sort of like underrated. So yeah, I'm going to really enjoy this broadcast. But that's enough of that. Let's talk about the fight. So, in terms of how this is going to happen, I'll talk about the fight progression in terms of how I think it'll happen. That'll be the final part of the video. And you might not be satisfied with my answer, but, just wait on it. And so, yeah, So I'll just start off with Canelo, right? So Canelo, obviously, 4-weight world champion, undisputed at 168. He was the man at 154, and then at 160, and then at 168, and then at 175. 160 is the one I have the biggest issue with, because I don't think he beat Triple G in either of those fights. At most, he won 4 rounds in the first fight. 5 if you want to be super, super, super generous. But just from a fair arbiter standpoint, I had it at worst 8-4 to Triple G. And realistically, 9-3, maybe even 10-2. So that's that. But 154, 168, 165, he's won titles there. Obviously, 175, he wasn't the man because he got beat up by Bivol. I also think that Better Biev would have stopped him. The accumulation of punches would have been simply too much for him. But nonetheless, he won a world title there, and he won a few fights there. He beat up Kovalev, even though Ward finished him off mentally. But that's an entirely separate discussion. But obviously, Canelo's been chilling at 168 for a few years now. I don't remember the exact number of years. Not checked that one, was spilled. This is the best flavour of Lucozade, by the way. Caribbean Crush. The only other allowable opinion is the apple one. I don't know what it's called. Yeah, that was a good one. So, those are the only 2 allowable Lucozade opinions. But away from that, So, Canelo's last stoppage, which is a bit of a concern for this fight, was 4 years ago. It was November. It was Caleb Plant, if I remember. I've got the list here. Yeah, it was Caleb Plant. Then he lost to Bivol. Then he fought Triple G, and he almost blew the fight somehow. Then he fought Ryder and Charlo and Mungu, or however the hell you pronounce it, Balanga and Skull. Charlo was a blown up super middleweight, coming up 2 weight classes, who was just there for a check. He had no interest in winning that fight. The rest of the guys obviously did, they just couldn't because they simply weren't good enough. Now, Canelo, that's obviously 1, 2, 3, that's 7 fights in the last 4 years which Canelo's had, which is pretty standard for him, and obviously this is going to be 8 in 4, he's good for 2 fights a year, sometimes 3, but normally 2. So, how much of that can be attributed to age? How much of it can be attributed to these guys can't beat me, I'm going to go through the motions and I can't be bothered to maybe get caught, I'm just here to collect a check. It could also be that. Obviously, Bivol, that was a legacy play. He wants to go up and be the man at 175, and he thought he could do that with Bivol. He almost cherry-picked him because he's a money fight, and no one's going to say no to fighting Canelo and fetching however much money you get for fighting him. Excuse me. So, he fought him. Bivol beat the brakes off him, really. He never hurt him, but that was a really not resounding, I only had it 7-5. But that was a case where the 5 rounds for Canelo, they were close, but they were his rounds. The rounds Bivol won were clearly his rounds. They weren't close, they were resounding wins. So 7-5, 8-4, I had it. And I think Bivol clearly deserved that victory. Then he fought Golovkin, where he nearly threw that fight away. Ryder, Charlo, Munguia, Balanga, and Skull, they were just easy fights. Skull was probably the least impressive of those, but again, I think part of that was just looking forward to this. That fight against Crawford, so that fight was in May, if I remember correctly, and this is in September. That fight was already confirmed. So this fight with Crawford tonight, was already confirmed. There was 0 doubt about that. So this was just, listen, I can't be bothered here. Just let me collect the check. The Mexicans love me. I need to put a fight on for these people. So let's go, let's fight. And, he won, and it was fairly comfortable. People were saying, oh no, Skull did well. It's like, listen, right, it's the whole thing of when Golovkin beat Jacobs. It's just like, oh, well, you're expecting this, you get that, and so now you're trying to hold it against him for your own expectations, but in reality, the guy still won. So that was what happened with Crawford. No, Canelo last time out. Crawford, so I think it's important. So Crawford was on like a 5-year run where he was just stopping everyone he fought. So he fought Victor Postol in 2016. I remember staying up for that fight. He knocked him down twice in round 4. I think it might have been even 3 times. That went was it round 4? It was early in the fight. He knocked down Postol twice. And I think, oh, this is done. He's going to knock him out. He didn't, right? Postol, he managed to last. He ran the rest of the fight, basically. He didn't want to get knocked out, fine, whatever. Then Crawford knocked out everyone. John Molina Jr., Julius Ndongo, and then he just went up and up. Then he beat up Jeff Horn and Benavidez Jr., and he knocked out Sean Porter, he knocked out Errol Spence, obviously, and obviously in between that you had Kell Brook and you had Amir Khan. He was beating up everyone. Even Easy, he fought before he fought Errol Spence. He was just beating the brakes off every single person who would have him. Right, I remember clearly. So Even Easy, he fought on my birthday. Yes, because I was on a plane that day. And, well, we already landed in the place, and I was actually up during it, but we were out, so I didn't watch it. I just remember saying, oh yeah, Crawford won, nice. I didn't watch that one live, I had to catch that one back after. But I didn't decide to, because, he was even easier, and I had no interest in seeing that fight. The only fight I had of interest for Terence Crawford at that particular point in time was him fighting Errol Spence. I did not care about any other fight for him. I still watched most of them, because he was my favourite fighter in the sport. Well, he is my favourite fighter in the sport. I just didn't care because, who the hell's he fighting? I'll watch the highlights today after. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. I'm not going to score it and go through the trouble of that when you're just going to beat the brakes off him anyway. But the point is, Crawford was butchering every single person. No one could hang with him. And then he fought Errol Spence. These are 2 top, I can't remember if it was top 5, but both top 10 and inside that top 8 range, pound for pound fighters. And Crawford bullied him. 8-1, 7-2, something. No, he knocked him out in round 9. So it was either 7-1 or 6-2 or something ridiculous like that, and he just beat Spence clearly was not the same fighter who he was before the car crash. I remember that fight. I remember I was in school when that happened, and my friends came up to me and they were like Spencer the Carcass. I was like, what? Is he dead? And he was like, no. I was like, okay. But obviously his eyes messed up and he had to have surgery. And he's not fought for 2 years. Apparently he's going to fight Jamel Charlo. That'll be a fun fight. I like Spencer. But the point is that Crawford was just beating the brakes of everyone. And he had, I think, 11 fight win streak. No, 11 fight knockout streak. A 6 fight run where he didn't even get to the end of round 10. He didn't even have to do round 11, round 12 because he was knocking everyone out before the end of round 10. Benavidez Jr., he knocked him out in round 12. That's very rare, right? Guys don't normally knock people out in round 12 because they're not going for the knockout in round 12. Especially a guy like Crawford who wins probably 70 to 80% of his rounds. Like, Crawford is always good for 8-4, 9-3, 10-2, those type of scorecards, right? It's rare that he even wins by 7-5. He's 8 to 10 rounds winning constantly. He's just that good. And, you know, he was great. Like, he was putting everyone to the sword, like and this knockout streak ran from 140 all the way up to 147. And then he fought Madrimov. And he was a bit more pedestrian. He won the fight, clearly. Some people were trying to say that he didn't win that fight and that Madrimov got robbed. You're flatly wrong, you're incorrect. Crawford just looked more pedestrian than you were used to because of the fact that he was putting everyone to the sword with such regularity and such ease all throughout the entire time. So now you see someone who makes him look a little bit more regular, which again is part of my evaluation for this upcoming fight. And now you have someone who makes him look a little more regular, and by regular it's just 8 rounds. Like, oh, he only wins 8 rounds as opposed to, 10 or 11. Fine, my God, what a problem. So he did, and the power didn't carry as well, and Madrimov did give him a bit of trouble at times, but at the same time, he still won the fight, and he still won it convincingly in my card. Like, I didn't think it was that particularly close. So I think all of those things, like, it's quite interesting. Obviously, they're both, I think Crawford's 37 or something like that. And you got to factor in, so Crawford is, in terms of my viewing, like, he's one of my probably 3 or 4 favorite fighters. In terms of the guys that I've watched live, so Mayweather, Ward, Golovkin, Kovalev, Canelo, Crawford, I think I've mentioned some guys twice, Pacquiao, all these different guys. So I would probably say that my viewing experience live probably stretches back to about 2012, I'd say. So, like, Mayweather, when Broner was a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter, things like that. Obviously, I was a kid then, but I was still watching. And so, Crawford is one of my 3 favorite fighters in that time frame. So, this isn't in order, but it's Mayweather, Golovkin, and Crawford. Those are my 3 favorites. There's some other guys who you can fit in there, like Andre Ward. I really liked him. I liked a few other guys. I really liked Rigondeaux. I've really enjoyed watching his fights. He's a pleasure to watch. Like, there's a few other guys who I've not mentioned deliberately. But, regardless, those are 3 of my favorites, and on different days, like, I prefer one more than the other. Like, some days I like Golovkin, some days I like Crawford, some days I like Mayweather. Fine. Whatever. The point is that Crawford is one of my favorite guys, and so I followed his career for a long time. So, and obviously Canelo is the biggest guy in the sport, so I'm not coming at this from a point of like, oh, well, these are just 2 guys, big, small, fine. Like, I think I'm in a nice position where I've seen both of these guys progress over time, like all these height measurements and all this stuff, like, it's interesting. So I never particularly liked Canelo that much, admittedly. Like, I was like, oh yeah, you're fine, but whatever. Like, I never really viewed him as like a wow, all-time great. Like, even though he's clearly a legend, 4-weight world champion, undisputed in one, belts in all the others, fine, whatever. But yeah, on the whole, he's great. So in terms of like the preview for this, like, Canelo is obviously the naturally much bigger man. Like, there's a reason he's fought at 175 and he looked fine up there. And Crawford is a natural wrestler and he started off at 135. I think his natural weight is 147. Like, normally, I think a good rule of thumb in boxing today is that you take a guy, whatever they start their career at, add an extra 2 weight classes, and that's probably where their natural weight is. That's probably where they're most comfortable. That's probably where they'll peak. So, like, if we take, like, obviously some guys are a bit different, like, say, is Mayweather modern boxing? I don't know. Like, but say Canelo, his natural weight, he started off at 147, and his natural weight, probably most comfortable, is 160. He enjoys 168 just because it lets him cut less weight and he can still punch guys up there. But I think his natural weight is probably actually 164 if I'm honest. But that's not a weight class, so he's a bit stuck. Crawford started off at 135, he moves up to 147, that's where he peaks. So, and then even say like a guy like Andre Ward, I think that he could have easily fought, if there was a weight class of 180, 185, I think he would have fought there. If you take Mayweather, yeah, let's use Mayweather as an example. Like 130 he started at, and his peak is arguably at 140 pounds. That's arguably with his finest performance as well. You can make that argument. So, there's a few different guys who that rule applies to. There's a few different guys who they don't. But I generally think that it's just a nice rule of thumb you can have, especially in weight class boxing. Like, there's heavyweight boxing and there's weight class boxing. Like, I think it's just the way it goes. So, what's the next part I want to talk about? So, yeah, so Canelo, he's at 168 now. He's going to 175. So, he's 5'7.5", which is actually not... But he's really short for the division that he fights at, you'd expect the guy to be about 6 foot. Maybe at shortest 5'11". Even then, Golovkin's viewed as a short-ish middleweight, and he was 5'11". So really, we're talking like 6 foot, 6'1", something like that. And, he's short there, and his arms are really short for that weight class. Like, he's only got 70.5-inch arms. Like, if you compare it to Crawford, who's 5'8", he's got 74-inch arms. Like, measurables, they weigh up in terms of Crawford, in terms of the height, the reach, things like that. But natural size always plays a factor. But at the same time, the weigh-in was yesterday, and Canelo was 167.5. Crawford 167.5. Like, they're both the same weight, so that size thing won't be a huge thing. I think the concern is that Canelo's weight can balloon easily. Like, Canelo's been reported at being like, he'll weigh in at 155 on weigh-in day, and then he weighs 180 on fight night. Like, I've seen reports of that sometimes. It's just like, bloody hell, that's a big jump. And here, Crawford, I don't imagine. Like, Crawford weighed in at 167.5. I think he'll if he puts any weight on, he'll at most be like 175. At most. Like, I think Canelo will probably be at 185 come tonight. 185, 190. Crawford's probably going to cap at 175. I think he'll probably be about 172, 173, something like that. So Canelo's probably going to outweigh him on fight night by about 10 to 12 pounds, which again is a big difference. Like, it just is. And people act like size doesn't matter. It absolutely does. Usyk and Fury, again, heavyweight boxers are different. It's weight class boxing as opposed to heavyweight boxing. That's almost an entirely different sport. You can't use it as a reference point for these guys down here. So the measurables, I think they still favor Canelo just because of natural size. But we'll have to see what happens in terms of that and how he imposes his will. Because there is a question mark of how well can Canelo utilize and make use of his size because of the style of his boxing, which is the next thing that I want to progress into. So Canelo is one of the most beautiful punches that I've ever seen. In terms of the torque that he generates with his body, the shape that he generates with his arms, the angles at which he can punch from. Not in terms of his footwork. So in my previous boxing video, I talked about the angles that Manny Pacquiao takes on. With Canelo, it's not so much with his feet, it's just the angle manipulation that he can do is ridiculous. Like, the torque that he generates in his arms, the twist, the absolute force that he can generate, it's insanely beautiful to watch. Like, he's one of the most fun. If you want to watch combination punching, watch Canelo. Like, type in Canelo Alvarez combination punching on YouTube, and you'll be sat with wonderful entertainment for a few hours on end. Like, it's wonderful what he can do. That said, he is a counterpuncher, and that combination punching, along with being a counterpuncher and a guy who struggles to cut off the ring, can cause some problems. Now, if we compare the way that he cut off the ring, so say if we take the last time I don't want to make this like a particularly poignant thing, but the last time he fought, an undefeated all-time great black boxer was Floyd Mayweather in 2013, 12 years ago, when Canelo was just a baby, really, if we're honest. He was 22, 23, however old he was, and he couldn't cut the ring off for anything. I'm using that as a reference point because obviously Mayweather, Crawford, like, the comparisons are natural. If they were in the same time, Mayweather probably would have tried to duck him, and then he would have had to fight him in the end. But hey, that's an entirely different conversation. So Mayweather, I couldn't help myself. So Mayweather made Canelo chase shadows. But at the same time, that was Mayweather. Mayweather was a guy who was naturally super light. He was 150, I think on fight night he weighed at 150. So he weighed in at 151, and I think on fight night he was like under 150. So he was super mobile, super slim, like super lean. He was dancing all over the place. He could fight, he could box, move, stick, roll, manipulate Canelo's guard, all those different types of things. Canelo now, he's still not great at it. Like, he's not Triple G, he's not Marvin Hagler, he's not Julio Cesar Chavez. He's not these all-time great ring cutters. But he's certainly much better at it. So his progression at that over the years, and his progression defensively, in terms of the way that he'll move his head, the way that he'll utilize that and use that to set up his combinations, the way that he'll understand how to use body angles and manipulate what the other guy is doing and help set up his own punches is definitely very good now. But in this fight, he's going to have to be the aggressor. He's going to have to cut the ring off against Crawford. And again, I don't want to get too far into the preview now. I'm going to do that towards the end of the video. I want to break down the skills of his fighters first. But the thing is that, so Canelo, when it comes to cutting off the ring, he's much better. His head movement's significantly better now. He doesn't get caught on bait and switches as much. He doesn't get lulled into traps as often as before, and all those different types of things. And the way he sets up his punches is wonderful. He'll lull you 1, 2, 3, and then he'll rip you with a punch that you don't see coming. Like, he has some of the most wonderful shot selection that I've seen. He is genuinely a wonderful fighter. So you factor all those in, but at the same time, he still is a bit slow-footed. He cuts off the ring, but he's still quite heavy and slow-footed with it, which is unfortunate, but it's just what it is. Like, he's not very mobile with it, so we'll have to see. Defensively, obviously, he moves his head a lot better. His hands, he still allows himself to get caught quite often, but again, his neck is so thick and it's so strong, like, it's almost impossible that you're going to get him out of there. Like, if Triple G can't get you out of there, and a light heavyweight can't get you out, and again, Bivol's not known for his punching power, but still, Kovalev was known for his punching power. He couldn't do much at all with Canelo. All these guys at 168, they couldn't do anything with him from a power standpoint. You're not going to stop him. And there's a cool story about that. So it's not just that he's got a thick neck. His base is absurdly strong, which is part of the reason why he's so heavy for his size. He loves riding horses, and apparently that builds up the strength in your lower body to an obscene amount, and that's why his base is really, really strong. Jim Lampley spoke about it on his Rogan. That's how I learned this. Go check that out. Type in Jim Lampley, Canelo, Joe Rogan horse riding. Something approximating that, and you'll find the exact story. I only heard it once a few months ago, so I can't recall the exact details verbatim. But the point is that Canelo, you're not going to stop him. His base is too strong, and his neck is too thick, and his upper body is and on the whole, it's hard to catch him clean. Right, you'll catch him, but you're not going to catch him clean. You're not going to catch him unawares. He's generally pretty good and pretty aware of what's going to happen. So we'll have to see what happens there. Now if we move into Crawford. So Crawford is probably my favorite case study as someone who enjoys the art and obviously practices it to a certain degree as well. You know, like I've said before, I train with guys who are a lot heavier than me. At the minute, I weigh 162. I'm adding mass at the minute. 162 and a half is what my logged weight is that I weigh myself every weekend. And, you know, I'm sparring guys who are like 200 pounds. So that's not... When you get caught by guys who are like 200, 220 pounds, like, it's rough. Like, you're getting licked and you have a headache for at least a few hours. So that's what it is. But the point is that when you see a guy like that and the way he moves up and he's fighting guys who... Okay, he's not a weight bully, but he's fighting guys who are naturally quite a bit bigger than him sometimes. Like Spence is naturally far bigger than Crawford. Like Spence used to fight at, I think, 165 in the amateurs, whereas Crawford wasn't fighting that high. So yeah, like it's a bit of a weight bully. It's cool to see his progression and the way that he fights both stances and things like that. Especially seeing how much he improved from... Like, if you go back and watch his Ricky Burns fight in 2013 or 14, and then you compare the clinic that he put on against Errol Spence a couple of years ago, my God. It is... Or even if we just take the Victor Postol fight from a few years after the Ricky Burns fight. Like, what he did to Postol, he embarrassed him for 12 rounds. He wore golden gloves that night, and it was absolutely fitting of a man of his fight style and stature. But yeah, what Crawford does... To this day, what Crawford did to Errol Spence is one of the most beautiful title fight dominations that you will see in a long time. Like, my God, I'm trying to think of once... Because Mayweather-Pacquiao wasn't seen as that dominant, even though Mayweather won 9 to 10 rounds. Because of the fact that some of the rounds were close, and Mayweather wasn't really close to stopping him outside of like round 9 or 10, I think it was. Like it was like you could take Mayweather Canelo, but that wasn't viewed as a 50-50 fight. Like maybe you'd use Roy Jones and James Toney, because that was viewed as a tough fight going into it, and just he obliterated him. Like there are a few fights that come to mind, like even Pacquiao De La Hoya may be up there, because obviously that was viewed as De La Hoya. I think from memory, De La Hoya was a slight favourite in that, and Pacquiao just destroyed him. Like, that, he bludgeoned him, and he got to the point where he won all 8 rounds, and he stopped him on a stalk to getting beaten. And Oscar was like, okay, I'll stop the fight. Like, when his trainer said it, it was just, okay, I can't even argue this. So, yeah. It's, like, what Crawford did to Spence in terms of his punch selection and the way that he leveraged what he could do as a southpaw, as a guy who could fight both ways, like, as a guy who was setting up the angles, as a guy who could operate from so many different places. Like, that was viewed as a real 50-50 fight going in, and instantly you could see the difference in capabilities and skill sets and things like that, and especially from the knockdown in round 2. Like, round 1, I gave to Errol Spence, and then from then on, it was just a complete massacre in favour of Crawford. So, there's that you have to factor in. But if we just talk skill sets, right? So, Crawford is officially orthodox, but he's not. Like, he's an orthodox guy he's a southpaw who masquerades as an orthodox fighter. Because he fights maybe 1 to 2 rounds as an orthodox fighter, and then he switches to lefty immediately. It's just like, just acknowledge you're a lefty. It's fine. It's fine. You can leverage these guys. Like, you have the right, like, your right hook can instantly get around the other guys because you're faster than most of the guys you fight. You have the left hand down the pipe. Like, and obviously most guys aren't used to fighting southpaws, so you have the advantage. But he can fight out of both ways, just as well as each other. But he's right-handed. So he likes to use his right hand as his jab hand, which is fine, but just, embrace it. Just fight lefty. So, yeah. In terms of Crawford, like, it's funny because he went from, like, so the guy who fought Postol was a mover. He was a stick and mover. He was landing. Like, this is why it's so stunning to me that he moved it to 168, because his clinic at 140 against Postol, where he won 12 rounds, it was so beautiful, and it was from a stick and move guy. It wasn't from a guy who was always knocking people out. It wasn't from a guy who was just bludgeoning guys left and right. It was a guy who was sticking. He was moving around the ring on a regular basis. And he just made Postol look like his feet were stuck in the mud the entire time. And then you move up. Obviously, he knocked out Julius Ndongo inside of round 3. I remember watching that fight. I was literally on that sofa that's a 3-seater sofa. And the one closest to the edge of the room is the place that I was sat. And I was watching it on my phone because I couldn't get it up on my laptop in time because the laptop wasn't working. So I was just watching it on my phone, and he'd already stopped it. I watched the whole thing on my phone, but when I was trying to load it on my laptop, it was like, oh, he's already knocked him out. Bloody hell! I just stayed up all this time for nothing. It was in 3 rounds. It was a bit annoying when that happened, albeit because I was tired from that day because I played basketball in advance. I remember my uncle and auntie came by and they said, "You want to watch it at our house?" I was like, "Nah, it's okay." So, because obviously their kid, my cousin, he also was going to watch the fight. I was like, nah, I'm going to play basketball early tomorrow again. I play basketball every day at this point. So I came back late. I was like, I'm tired. Like, maybe I'll sleep for a bit, maybe I won't. But then they didn't have a PlayStation at their house at that point. They'd moved it over to the house across the road. So I was like, okay, nah, it's all right. Because I don't want to stay up for that long, and then I'm tired, and then I stay up at your house, then I won't leave till about 1. But this is an entirely irrelevant story, but just indulge me. So the point is that I was watching it at my house over here, just on that sofa over there. And then I got to the point, so I was like, bloody hell. So he knocks him out, and then he fights at 147, and then he knocks out every single person he fights at 147, and then gradually he was turning into more of a seek and destroy type of guy. Like, he was doing the stick and move, he was doing the feed out process, but at the end of the day, he was just a pure and raw killer. Like, if he got you in trouble, he was finishing you with it. Like, I still remember the Sean Porter fight. Porter, like, I can't remember how I scored that fight, to be honest. I honestly don't remember how I scored it. But his corner said to him, he's up. And Crawford just looked at him like, he's up? And he switches it on and knocks him down in like 30 seconds. He's like, what the hell's wrong with this guy's a psycho? Like, to this day, like, one of the craziest clips I've ever seen is that Terence's mum used to pay kids around the neighborhood to try and beat him up. And he would just beat the crap out of them. It didn't matter. Nobody could whoop him. Like, it's too good. So that's a funny story. But yeah, Crawford on the whole he's a wonderful fighter. And sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. But he gradually turned into more of a seek and destroy guy who was fighting predominantly out of the southpaw stance. He was setting up his punches. He was framing his punches with his forearm very, very well. And that's one of the best things you can do as a fighter. Like, it's like if you can stick that hand on them, frame it with your forearm, and just dig it into them so their hand can't go anywhere, and then you just, I'm trying not to swear, you just dig that left hand back into them. Like, well, obviously, you dig the backhand back into them. Like, it's super, super dangerous. And obviously, like, Mayweather was a master at it. Like, Mayweather would land that right hand. You'd get your jaw on his forearm. He'd trail it. Sometimes he'd rake it off. Sometimes he'd rake it back the other way. And he'd catch you with the other hand as well. He'd do the same with his left hand. Like, all these little dirty tricks. Crawford's one of the low-key dirty fighters, too. Like, these guys who are subtle dirty, really, really successful because they blur the vision. They manipulate the guard in the way that you're ethically not supposed to. You end up doing things that you're just not meant to do, like subtle things. But Andre Ward's probably the best. Andre Ward's probably the best at fighting dirty over the last 20 years or so and not getting penalised for it. Like, even his knockout against Kovalev in the second fight. Like, he hit the guy in his crotch about 3 times in a row. And the ref just didn't call it. I think it was Richard Steele. Was it Richard Steele? I can't remember the guy. It was the guy, I'm pretty sure it was the ref with the mustache. I don't remember exactly. Like, he was quite thick-headed. Like, he's got like a wide face. And, you know, like, he's got that proper prison trim, like, and he has like the little, I don't know what it's called, I'll be honest, but like the little small afro up top, but like it's really crew cutted and whatever. So that ref, I think it was him, and he just didn't call it. So of course, what is that? Okay, I'm just gonna keep ramming him here. Cool, look at the ref like, what are you doing? Help me, I'm dying here. So that was funny. That one I did watch at my auntie's house. But yeah, the point is that Crawford fights subtle dirty. A lot of the best guys do, especially these African American fighters. And so what you end up getting is a guy who can fight clean, fight dirty, and he can do them both at the same time, but he's one of the best fighters around. And he's also tending to a guy who has powerful seek and destroy power. Because ultimately he framed his punches really well, and the angles that he can fight from is really well, and he can fight, and he moves, and he sticks, and he lands the combinations. He's not similar to Pacquiao, but in terms of the way he sets up his punches on the angles, it is similar. No, that's a horrible phrasing. So he's not similar in terms of the fact that he will stick and move. No. What am I saying? My brain's all over the place. I'm too excited about this fight, so the thoughts aren't coming out in the right way. So he will set up his punches in a way where he takes awkward angles for you, and he will frame you from these awkward angles, and then he will land your punches. And when I say awkward, I mean awkward for the guy, because it's awkward to defend from some of these angles that Crawford can capitalize from. So when that ends up happening, then you get a guy in the space of Crawford who is just an utterly all-time great, who can fight from any stance, any angle, and deliver any type of shot and any type of punch you want. And he's also freakishly strong. Crawford has a bit of a wrestling background. And part of the reason why some people in the industry are so convinced that he can win tonight is that he is a freakishly strong person. People have seen him wrestling, like his core strength is off the charts. And even though he's quite wiry, he's super strong in terms of the way he can grip you up and all these different types of things. So what he ends up doing is he leverages your strength against you, and he's very good in the clinch as well, which is, again, another good trait of these subtle, dirty fighters. Mayweather, Ward, like, they're two of the best inside fighters that I've seen, especially among the black fighters. Like, these darker fighters, they don't tend to be as good on the inside as some of these other light-skinned fighters. Not light-skinned, as some of the lighter fighters, like the Caucasian guys, so the whites, the Mexicans, those types of fighters, they're not as good on the inside in terms of what I've seen. Like, I don't see them as good. Like, say, you're never going to have a black Roberto Duran in terms of the level that they could do and deliver and the damage they could blow on the inside. So Crawford, Mayweather, and Ward are quite rare. And funnily enough, those are 3 of my favorite fighters. I love inside fighters. Like, I think that they are some of the most beautiful things you can see. The way you can manipulate a guard. I know I'm sidetracking a lot here. I'm only at half an hour, so don't complain too much. I've had episodes over an hour. I was with a niche for 2 hours, so, you know, if you watched all that, you can watch this. But yeah, like the way that you can move out the guard, the way that you can... Because most guys aren't used to fighting on the inside. They don't teach it anymore. So when you have a guy who can fight on the inside and manipulate your guard, and he's digging it out of the way, and he's digging you to the inside, and he can put extreme leverage on the shot from inside and in close, and he can kill your body, and he can kill you upstairs, and he can leverage those shots and open up here, 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 here. And I'm pointing below the camera, but you get the point that all these low shots, which aren't low, but they're body shots, and they're around the hip... No, they're around the belly button, they're around the abs, they're around the ribs, they're around the organs. All those different type of shots from the inside. And Crawford isn't a huge body puncher, to be clear. I'm just saying why the inside fighting is so valuable. When you have a guy as strong as Crawford who can operate on the inside and is comfortable there, now you have a guy who's really, really tough to deal with. Which is what ends up making me part of the thing that maybe Crawford's been a bit of a weight bully his career. Because, you know, if you can fight at 168, then, you know, it's a bit of a problem when you're fighting guys at 147 and they can't deal with you or at 140. Like, it's outrageous. So, you get a guy who's super complete and might be the most skillful boxer in the game. It's him, Usyk, Those are probably the two, to be honest with you. I'll be honest. So, like, who else even is there? Like, Bivol has a lovely up and down, but he's straight up and down with special effects. It's just his rhythm and his bounce is beautiful. Beterbiev is just a wonderful pressure fighter, but he gets caught a lot. And we've seen a better version of him just skill set wise in the former Triple G. So, I mean, Inoue, he gets caught a lot and he's always dropping. So when he throws a jab, his right hand's always dropping. So that left hook upstairs as a counter is always cash money against him. So all these two are probably the most. So Canelo, no, not Canelo. Crawford and Usyk are the two most skilled fighters, and I think Crawford is probably the one because of the fact he can do everything and he can do it both ways. Like, he's like, I don't know, who's an extremely ambipedal guy. He's like Dembele, but if Dembele was about 7 shades better. Because Crawford is legitimately the best in the world, and Dembele is just not. So yeah, that's your football content. So yeah, so what we're gonna get at. So now you just end up having two guys who are wonderfully skilled, and you have two guys who are wonderfully complete. No, you have a guy who, in the form of Crawford, who is complete and skilled and strong and relatively powerful, and he moves well. And then you have a guy in Canelo who is naturally far, far, far bigger and has perfect punch combination and variation and has wonderful shot selection. But he's just so much bigger than Crawford. Like, Crawford is essentially moving up 3 weight classes here. People are saying officially it's 2. I class it as 3. If you have one fight at 154, you're not a true 154 guy yet. You just aren't. You've not adapted yet. Your body hasn't fully taken shape. Your power's not used to it yet. You're not used to how much you need to put in. You're not used to how your body feels, the conditioning and things like that. There's so many different things that go into being. It's not just being. That's why moving up weight class is such a big thing. Like, people talk about unifying, and I get it. That's one of the sticks that people used to beat Mayweather with, and I personally do it as well. Like, if you don't unify the weight class, are you really the man there? Well, yes. It's just, are you the best? We're talking in terms of pure belts. So when we get to that, we have to talk about the conditioning and all the. Crawford wasn't used to 154 yet, is the point I'm trying to make. So he's essentially moving up 3 weight classes because he spent so he fought at lightweight for just a couple of years. Then he moved up. I don't know if he got time for him. I didn't bother to check. And then he fought at super lightweight for a couple of years, and he left there after becoming undisputed in 2017. I want to say. I think it might have only been 2017. I want to say. My phone's here, so I really should have checked that beforehand. But, right, what do you want? So let me check this. So, Crawford, I'm sure it was 2017 that he knocked out Indongo. Yeah, I was right. It was August 2017. I was right, because, yeah. And then he didn't fight for a year, then he fought Jeff Horn. He won the welterweight title WBO immediately. And that was when the first rumors that he should fight Errol Spence came from, because Spence also came up at a similar time, and they both had belts at a similar-ish time. So what you then end up getting is and then he's at welterweight for 6 years. Now, do I think he moves up quicker if Al Heyman wasn't having him around and he wasn't like throwing his panties around all over the place like a red cape? Possibly. I think that Spence fight, had it not been for like. All things being equal, and Spence doesn't get a car crash, that fight probably happens in 22, post-COVID. Maybe, probably 21, actually, I'll be honest. Like, once COVID comes back here. Wait, when did COVID finish, really? Like, 21? Yeah, the lockdowns finished in 21, essentially. I'm pretty sure. Did they? Such a waste of time. But, so, you get that. So let's assume there's no COVID. Let's assume there's no car crash. That fight probably happens in 21 at latest, probably 2020. And then do I think Crawford then moves up? I think he probably moves up around 22, so he moves up an extra 2 years earlier. So maybe that impacts that. I don't know, but let's just go with the information that we actually have available to us, which is he spent 6 years at welterweight, which is a very long time. I think they probably would have spent 4 years had it been totally up to him, but let's just go with the information that we have for 6 years. So he spent 6 years getting his body used to the 147. So that impacts his training camp. That impacts his conditioning. That impacts the training he has. Not in terms of. So training camp, I think of like the boxing work, the conditioning work, all those different types of things. And just training, I mean in terms of weight and. So just weight and body composition and all those different types of things. Crawford is a guy who's just in shape in general. He enjoys the life. He enjoys the graft of life, which is a defining trait of a lot of these all-timers. Mayweather loved the life. Ali loved the life. Pacquiao loved the life. And then we compare it to, even like Marvin Hagler loved the life. Roberto Duran didn't love the life, and ultimately that's why, even though he might have been the best of all of those four from a skill perspective of Hearns, Leonard, Hagler, Duran, he had the shortest peak, if you will, because he would balloon 50 pounds between fights. Same with Ricky Hatton. And then you get a guy like Terence Crawford, who loves the life. You get a guy like Errol Spence, who doesn't seem to love the life as much, but he still puts the work in. Even Canelo, he loves the life. He's always fighting. Triple G loves the life. Triple G lives in shape. Triple G's walking around at like 170. He only drops 10 pounds for fight night, which is why it was so easy for him. That's why he never seemed out. That's why he was never shredded. He had those blocky abs, and he had the little lines on the V shape, and his shoulder to hip ratio wasn't massive, but he wasn't like zoom. He was more like just like blocky type. So all these types of guys who love the life, they tend to have better careers than the guys who just don't. Right? Even Andre Ward. Andre Ward loved the life. He loved it so much that he had to get out quickly because he knew he'll end up with brain damage. So all these different guys who love the life tend to do better than the guys who don't. So Crawford is just always in shape. And so now you end up getting a guy who, okay, when I say always in shape, I mean you have to drop 20 pounds, but that 20 pounds is there because you're eating a lot. As opposed to you're not training, which Crawford seemed like the type of guy he was, and that's the impression that he always gave off. And that's it. From conversations, it always seemed like that's what he was doing. And so then the next thing that we end up getting into is what was the next thing? So yes, the body. So his body isn't entirely used to being a 154 fighter, let alone a 168 fighter. So now this is his first time in a camp as a 168 fighter. This is his first time training with 168 guys. It's probably his first time sparring with guys who are this big and this heavy. This is probably his first time doing all these different types of things. And now you're fighting the best. You're fighting a guy who has an argument as the best 168 fighter of all time. That is not an easy thing to do. You're stepping in against the best guy in this weight class ever. Now, has he slowed down? Absolutely. And Crawford will have noticed that as well. But again, how much of that slowing down is because of him looking ahead to this and him thinking, right, I've not got a proper challenge. Now again, that's his fault, right? He should be seeking out the challenges, all things being equal. But at the same time, why would you expend more effort for the same result and the same paycheck? If you can improve your life by an order of magnitude with X amount of dollars, then you fight a guy like Crawford, who is a big legacy hit if you don't beat him, and there is a chance that you could lose. But otherwise, I get why Canelo's done this for all these years. As disappointing and as annoying as it is. That's why I don't oppose Dana White's boxing league, but that's an entirely different conversation. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Before I get into, the prediction, so how did these guys actually match up against each other? So I've run through the simulations in my head a few different times. I've not managed to come to a definitive conclusion in terms of how I think the fight will go. Like, in terms of just how they match up, I think stylistically this favors Crawford. Not just because boxer tends to beat puncher, but because Canelo's an excellent boxer too. I just think that if a guy is slow-footed and he relies on catching you the once or twice, even though Canelo can put punches together, that is a severe deficiency that you have against a guy like Terence Crawford. But the problem is that obviously, stylistically, the fight I'd want Crawford to fight tonight is the fight he fought against Victor Postol. But I don't know, with this extra 30 pounds of weight that he has. Think about how much weight that is. That's like 14 kilos. You think if you add or drop 14 kilos to your body mass, how much of an impact that would make? I did it. Look at my photos on my pinned profile picture on Twitter, for God's sake. And I was 190 pounds, and the next one I was 160 pounds. Look at the difference facially and all these different types of things. So, it's a difficult one. Does his body have the conditioning to handle the extreme amount of movement that he's likely going to have to take in this fight? Because even though Canelo's not the greatest at ring cutting, he's definitely gotten better at it, and even though his feet aren't the fastest, it's certainly not the slowest. He's not stuck in the mud all the time. He's not just swinging for that one-hitter quitter. So that's something that has to be factored in. So that's the first thing I'm thinking about in terms of the movement. Now, if Canelo gets his back against the ropes, if Canelo gets Crawford back against the ropes, he will do very well, obviously, because as good as defensively as Crawford is, he can be hit. But the other thing for Crawford is that part of the reason what made him such a great seek and destroy fighter is that he was okay with catching the odd lick here and there, right? He wasn't like Triple G, who would take one to land 2 bombs, fine, but you could catch him. Like Crawford is not this. He's not this elusive, evasive master all the time. Like he almost enjoys a scrap sometimes, which it's never failed him so far. Like he's 41-0, and he's won a lot of fights, and he's knocked out most of the guys too. So that's another issue that Crawford is going to have to face. Like, how does his body take dealing with that? And then the obvious ones of, can he make Canelo respect his power? And if the answer was no, then I struggle to see how he can win this fight. Crawford has historically punched very well in those MX gloves, and the word is that he's wearing those tonight. If he wears those and he can catch Canelo with them and he can make Canelo respect him, all of a sudden this fight goes from something which is very hard to pick to not struggle to see how Canelo can win, but then now I'm leaning Crawford. But I don't know if I just don't see a way that I think he can make Canelo respect his power. Because ultimately, if Canelo doesn't respect his power and Canelo can just walk through his punches, then I don't see a world now. Would Canelo stop him? I don't know, because Crawford is tough as anything. He's tough as nails. But ultimately, if he can't make Canelo respect his power, then he's in for a long 12 rounds. Because Canelo's punches, they will have a cumulative effect. And he puts a lot into those. Canelo doesn't throw throwaway punches. Canelo throws a lot, and that's what makes his combination punches unique. Because he puts a lot into those punches, and he can throw them at extreme velocity, and he can chain them together. He can put together 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 punch combinations, and they look wow. He's one of the, like I said, he's one of the best combination punchers that I've seen. He's absolutely wonderful, and it's crazy because it seems like there's quite a lot of wasted movement too in there. Like I'm not sure biomechanically in terms of how exactly that works, but he's in an interesting spot. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens. I think that Crawford's plan will be to move around and stick him early. The worry is what happens when Crawford's backs get against the ropes, and how does Canelo react? Because Canelo will get his back against the ropes at certain different points. And Crawford will probably end up backing Canelo up at certain different points just because Canelo sometimes invites people on because he is a very good counterpuncher. He's not a counterpuncher in the way that Triple G was. Triple G was a guy who's a counterpuncher because you're countering his counter. Canelo likes to bait you into throwing shots that he can, because he's got excellent head movement, slip, bang. He particularly likes to slip to the right and then come back with that looping right hand where he's talking and twisting. Think that Amir Khan knockout. Look at the shot that he landed on Triple G's chin, where Triple G rolled with it, but that's the same shot. Slips this way, comes back with the overhand right, and he lands it square on that chin. So he particularly likes that one. He doesn't like coming from the left as much. So we'll have to see how that impacts it, because obviously you don't want to. So if you're Canelo, you don't even really want to slip Crawford's rear left hand. You'd want to come back, but then does that leave you up for the right hand coming back the other way, so that could lead to that combination. But Canelo's tend to be pretty good at evading those. But again, I don't know how many 3-4 punch combinations that Crawford's even going to get off. I think there's a very good chance that he sticks to 1-2 punch combinations the entire night. Stick pot shot in the entire way. But again, can he make the biggest crux of this is, and people are going to try and make this really complicated, and even I'm doing it now. The biggest thing of this is, will Canelo respect Terence Crawford's power? If he does, then this goes from something where I'm leaning Canelo to a pure coin flip fight. And even then, the coin flip is going to be biased in favor of Crawford then. Because ultimately now, if he can back Canelo with his punches, and not because Canelo's inviting him in, now you're in trouble. Now Canelo is done. Now, if Canelo isn't afraid of him, this could get ugly, because it won't be the type of thing where where Crawford gets brutalized, but it will be the type of thing where Crawford is just beaten and bludgeoned for 12 rounds. And honestly, it's so odd because These are the best type of fights because when the better boxer is the smaller man and the puncher is the bigger man, it's always the coin flip types. If the boxer is the bigger man, you're done for. It's just impossible. That's why Mayweather was always going to beat Pacquiao, regardless of what happened. But regardless of what weight, when it happened, this, it was just a matter of if they ever fight, this guy's bigger, he's the better natural boxer, he's the better defender, he's going to win. Crawford is the better boxer. Crawford is the better defender. But Canelo is so much naturally bigger. The reach difference of 3.5 inches, I'm not sure it'll matter. Because Crawford has grown accustomed to coming inside now. So I'm not sure how much he's going to... A, I'm not sure how much he's going to want to stick and move on the outside. B, I'm not sure how much his conditioning can take it. Because doing that circling business, it's tiring. I tell you, it is exhausting as you get down the road. It's not a fun thing to do on a regular basis. So we'll have to see how his body takes to that too. I told you this pick. Honest to God, I don't know who I think is going to win this fight. I'll lean Canelo just because I favor size a lot, and 3 weight classes is a lot, which is, as I said, what I'm viewing this jump as. I'm gonna go Canelo. I think it'll be by decision. I don't think he stops him. And even then, it's funny, the odds maker actually view this as a really close fight. So if we just go on odds checker, I couldn't be bothered to find the actual individual ones, but just odds checker has it as, well, not close. Crawford's basically a 2-1 underdog, but Alvarez is he's only a 2-3 favorite. Well, 3-2 favorite. So you stake 3, you're going to get 2 back. So in total, no, you stake 6, you're going to get 4 back. So as a profit, so you'll only get net 10. Whereas Crawford is you bet 10, you get 17 back. 17-10, that's almost 2-1. Canelo, yeah, by decision. So wait, method of victory, what we got? So Canelo by decision is almost evens. Crawford by decision is over 2-1. Canelo by stoppage is 4-1. And Crawford by stoppage is 10-1. My God. I'll be honest. I'd take Canelo by decision. Even if you were going to bet this. I'd take Canelo by decision at 11-8. Which is, I imagine, what the market will sit it as across. It'll be around that, so 11-8. So you get a bit more back. Or if you really feel good about it, you take. Do you want to do that? I don't know. No, don't take gambling advice. This isn't an endorsement, by the way. I'm not sponsored by any of this. I just enjoy seeing what the odds say. Yeah, I'd say Canelo by decision if you want to bet it. Yeah, I'd probably say that. And then if you want to do straight up, I'd take Crawford. So Canelo by decision. And then I'd probably take Crawford. I'd just bet Crawford straight up, if I'm honest. I'd take one of those as the odds. Or even you can hedge it and do it both ways on separate bookies so you don't get banned. Obviously you have to set up the account, but that takes 5 minutes or something, I don't know. Yeah, that's probably what I'd do. So Canelo by decision or Crawford straight up. Probably just to minimize your risk. Just to ensure it. Because I don't think you're going to find evens for Canelo anyway. I think Canelo is going to be the favourite in this. So, yeah, that's probably what I'd take. So, in terms of how I see it going, just in terms of a detailed thing, I think early Crawford comes out and he tries to stick and moving. Get a feel out. Canelo will feel out his power. I think he'll start quite slow. Give the first 1 or 2 rounds. But Crawford's quite a slow starter too. But I think early on he's not going to want to give away round because it's a Mexican and it's Canelo's hometown. And so Vegas has turned into Canelo's hometown, basically. And he's obviously had a bunch of Mexicans in Vegas get dodgy decisions. Julio Cesar Chavez got a few very strange ones. Oscar De La Hoya, he got a few strange ones. I remember he even got gifted a card against Mayweather in that 75. Canelo has got countless strange decisions. Erislandy Lara, Floyd Mayweather. Obviously, he didn't win the Mayweather fight, but that was an odd card. Someone gave him it someone had it as a draw at 114, which is absurd. And then, obviously, both of the first 2 Triple G fights, it's just a bit of like Canelo's had a bunch of strange cards. So's De La Hoya, so's Chavez. Like all these different guys. Like the Mexicans always get strange odds in Vegas. So I think Crawford's not going to want to rest those laurels for this one. I think he'll probably come out early, stick a move, pop, 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 move around the ring, look to try and make Canelo respect his power. I think Canelo will probably try and feel out what approach that Crawford is going to come to this fight with. And then from there, he will evaluate whether he wants to make this into I don't think this fight's going to be fought in the center of the ring for much, as long as if Canelo gets his way. I think that Canelo's probably going to try and back him up behind the jab quite a lot, and his jab definitely got much better. I actually think that Canelo might be well served if he uses the not switch hitting, but I can't remember the exact term for it, but where you follow through with the right hand. So when you throw a right hand and you bring your right foot forward as well, so for a split second you're square and then your feet switch, it can help back up the other guy. Because if you bring so let's say you're an orthodox guy, left hand you throw the jab, and then with the right hand you bring that foot forward, you can frame it, and then you can get those other shots as well, and then you pivot again, then you can get it back to where now you're a right-hander again, so almost just it's like a mini switch for just like a small moment. I can't remember the exact term for that specific term. I don't think it's total switch hitting. I think that's going to irritate me, and I don't want to search it because that would take me too long to type on chat. So, yeah, the point is that I think Canelo would be well served to make use of that. And then when he gets him backed up, just unleash. Don't be measured, obviously, but don't go but you want to rip him to the body as much as you can, wear him down, make him wear that extra weight. Don't let him dance around with it. Make sure that you bully him, make sure that you throw him around, make sure that he feels the extra weight that Canelo is putting on him, and he has to feel the 168 that he wears, because Crawford's big at the minute. Like, he looks really good in shape. So we'll have to see. On Canelo, normally he weighs he's 167 and a half. He's not at the weight limit either. So make him feel the extra 10, 12 pounds that you're probably going to have on him, and look to back him up and make him wear the extra 20 pounds he's put on. Like, force him into wearing it. And then from there, see if you can take it later on. So that's what I think will end up happening. I think later on, I think Crawford gets a bit gassed, probably around 8, 9, 10. And then Canelo really starts to unload, his body shots start taking their toll. And then Crawford gets a bit tired. I think he gets a bit reckless. And then I think Canelo will clean up those last couple of rounds. And then I think he'll get a decision. Probably 8 rounds to 4. Which is crazy, because saying someone can beat Terence Crawford in 8 of 12, that sounds crazy to even say. But I think 7 to 8 rounds that Canelo will win. Now, does that mean I rule out a chance of Crawford winning? No, absolutely not. Like, if he can wear the extra weight and his punches have enough venom in him, he can absolutely win. I think he will win if the punches have enough weight. It's just a matter of, can he make Canelo respect his power? Which I don't think he can. But if he can, then he'll win. And even then, right, if he can move around and he can circle and he can do it well enough and he has the conditioning for the 12 rounds, he can pull it off. But yeah, I think Canelo decision. I think this fight can end 3 ways. Canelo stoppage, Canelo decision, Crawford decision. I find it impossible for Crawford to stop him. I don't see it being possible. If Triple G can't stop him, if Sergey Kovalev can't stop him, if Dmitry Bivol can't stop him, if all these great fighters can't stop Canelo, I don't see, who are closer to his natural weight, by the way, if they can't stop him, no one's ever even put Canelo down, really. Like, I think it was his one official knockdown recorded against him, I think it was a nonsense knockdown. Like, go back and watch the footage, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was against Ricky Hatton's little brother. It was a stupid decision. It wasn't a knockdown. He wasn't knocked down. So no one's ever put it down, and I don't see Terence Crawford being able to do that. I don't see him being able to bad up Canelo's face, so I just don't see it. So, in my mind, I think Canelo decision 7-5, 8-4. Yeah, 7-5, 8-4, or he stops Canelo late, or he stops Crawford late, maybe like around 11. So yeah, that's my pick. We'll see. We're right at around an hour, so I think I'll finish off here. And my aim is to start doing these on a more regular basis again. Like, I've had a busy few weeks, so I've not been able to fit these in. I think we're almost at 3 weeks in terms of... So next week will be week 3 of the NFL. I'll probably record another NFL one with Anish in week 4 or 5, something like that. And then, well, next week will be week 3, obviously, is what I'm saying. So yeah, we'll see what happens. On the whole, hope you enjoyed this. Like, rate, subscribe as always. And if you have an opinion on the fight, please comment. It's on Netflix. Enjoy the show. I think it'll be a wonderful fight. I think it will be an absolutely fantastic event. Initially, I thought Crawford would just get bludgeoned. Now I do think it's almost a coin flip fight because Canelo has slowed down, and Crawford is one of the guys I just don't bet against in this generation. But I will be tonight. But that's besides the point. So yeah, let's see what happens, and hopefully it's a wonderful event, and hopefully we will get one of the fights of the year, if not the fight of the year, and I can't wait. Hope you all enjoy, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.